This is episode 21 of I Love This Album. I'm your host. My name is Dan. Just trying out a new thing today. I don't know if I'll do that again. Today I'm going to talk about a great album from 1987 and I realized not 1987, that was a great year. One of the best years for music for me. I thought about there's going to be another album I'm going to do that I'm going to talk about at some point, also from 1987. I've mentioned before that Anthrax Among the Living is possibly my favorite album ever. It came out in 1987. Death Angel, I mentioned. The Ultraviolence came out in 1987. I love that album. Sacrifice for Determination was 87. Testament, The Legacy, their first album was 87. And also this one, The Cult, Electric. This was a huge album for me in 1987. This was really, really big. Before I get to the album, as I have a tendency to do, I'm going to talk about my history with the Cult. It's not really that big. My history with the Cult doesn't go that deep. It's long. It goes back to 85, which is a long time. That's 36 years. It's a long time, but it was never very deep. Who else did I do in this series that was like that? Where they kind of REM was kind of like that, and there's maybe going to be another one that's kind of like that too. That I wasn't a big fan of their whole catalog, but they had one album that I really, really loved, and in this case it was Electric. So I heard the Cult, I guess in 1985 or 1986 when I don't know what that album was called, Love, and they had She Sells Sanctuary was on the radio, and what was the other song from that album? I can't even remember, and I didn't like them at all. To me, they sounded like the new wave-ish kind of rock alternative. Although I don't know if back then people called it alternative, and I just didn't like it. I was back then a metal kid. Now I'm a metal old man, and I just didn't like it. But then when Electric came out, they really did change their sound, and I loved it. And I can't remember which song I heard first. If it was probably, I don't know what the first single was. It was probably either Wildflower or Love Removal Machine. I thought, oh, that's pretty good. But I'll get to the album and the tracks and my favorite song in a few minutes. But my history with the Cult. So I did see them on this tour on Electric, and to prove it, lest you don't believe me, here's my ticket from when I saw the Cult. This was in Toronto in August 19th, 1987, 34 years ago. And if you can see, I used to write, sometimes the ticket companies, the Ticketmaster or Bass, whoever it was, sometimes they printed the name of the opening band on the ticket, sometimes they didn't. When they didn't, I used to write it in, and if you can see that right above my index finger, was Guns N' Roses. Guns N' Roses opened this show. Appetite for Destruction had just come out a month earlier. I was already a fan, and then kind of funny, I saw Guns N' Roses played in Mexico City in 2016. They played 2 nights there at Foro Sol, the big stadium, and I went to both of them, and the Cult opened. So everything kind of, I don't know if it went full circle or if it went half circle, but I saw Guns N' Roses open for the Cult in 87, and then the Cult opened for Guns N' Roses in 2016, which is pretty cool to see them again. And then I did buy, so I loved Electric. It was, I associate the summer of 1987 with, like I said, there were some good ones, but I would say my top ones were Among the Living, which came out I got it in April. I remember getting it in April 87. And another one that I said I'm going to talk about, and the Cult, Electric. That was the summer of 87. The Cult was a big part of it. And one more thing, props. I've got props. Here's a picture of me with a Cult shirt. This was in Hollywood in 1989 at Universal Studios Hollywood in 1989, and there's a picture of me with a Cult shirt that I got from that show in 1987 in Toronto at the CNE Grandstand. So I don't have a Cult shirt currently. I would buy that shirt if I saw that shirt now. I would buy it again. So there it is. So yeah, not a huge cult fan, and I did buy after that came Sonic Temple, and I bought it. Never really got into it. I don't know why. It just didn't do it for me. And then, but I never gave up on bands. And then came was it Ceremony with, I think Edie was on that one. Never got into that one, although I did love Edie. But they, as I said, when they got to Electric, they did change their sound. The first album, which I think was called Love, it was a little bit kind of U2. That's who it reminded me of. I thought these guys, the cult, sound like U2, and I hated U2. And this is just another band that sounds like U2. And then when Electric came out in '87, I couldn't believe it was the same band. They sounded much. I mean, it's pretty obvious they had a very strong AC/DC sound. The guitars were very chunky and riffy and gritty and kind of raw, and it was a very simple, very rock. Just a really fun, good album, and I loved it. So getting into this Electric track by track. What was also cool about this was back then I bought the singles for this were Wildflower, Love Removal Machine, Little Devil, and I don't know if there was one for Peace Dog, but back then bands used to put out singles. They were like 12-inch singles, and they had B-sides on them. And the Cult had really cool packaging. Put that down for a second. They had really cool packaging for their singles. So I bought all those three. I don't know if they were EPs or maxi singles or whatever you call them, but I bought them and they were cool. They had cool artwork and some. I can't remember the B-sides, but I'll have to look into those. So getting into Electric track by track. Wildflower is the first song. I'm a wild child girl, howling for you. Wildflower. Very, you'd think it was AC/DC. Peace Dog, another crunchy, very percussive guitar, just like Billy Duffy. It sounds like he's just hitting the guitar, hitting the strings. Love that one too. I love everything. What do I need to say? Of course I love it. Little Devil, living in a shack in a one-horse town, trying to get to heaven before the sun going down. Lizard in a Bottle. I always loved Lizard in a Bottle. I thought that was a cool lyric. I didn't know what it means. I still don't know what it means, but it sounds cool. Lizard in a Bottle. And then in the second verse, it was she came on like a cyclone smile, dynamite lover, Scorpion Child. And then there was a band that came out in 2014 called Scorpion Child. And as soon as I heard about the band, I thought, oh, that reminds me of Little Devil by the Cult. And it turns out that they did lift the name. Scorpion Child is a great name for a band, and that first Scorpion Child album is amazing, although it doesn't sound like the Cult. But they did take the band name from Little Devil. Hey there, Little Devil, be my little angel. Hard to read this. It's very small print, and it's on a blue background. It's very hard to read. Oh, Aphrodisiac Jacket. That's a good one. A little bit of a kind of a slower one. That one. Electric Ocean. Hard to read this. Bad Fun. That's a much more up tempo one. Very fast. Kind of a cool drums in that song. Fast up tempo. Was never a favorite, but I did like that one. King Countryman. Here we go. There's my favorite. King Countryman. Did I get the riffs mixed up? Did I mention one of the riffs from another song that was actually King Countryman? I saw the devil, countryman. I saw the devil down the long road. He said to me, boy, he said to me, boy, I want your soul. I said, yeah. That reminds me not just of AC/DC like the other ones, like the crunchy. That had kind of like a really cool AC/DC groove. Very similar to, I would say, Riff Raff. It doesn't sound like Riff Raff at all, but it has that really cool groove. And yeah, King Countryman is my favorite on this album. What's next? So hard to read this. Oh, Love Removal Machine. That was a big hit from this album. That was on the radio, all over the radio in the summer of 1987. And I probably at the time did get tired of it, but it doesn't change the fact that it's a great song. Born to Be Wild is next. Born to Be Wild. Now, I've mentioned many times about what I think about cover songs. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. This is kind of a hit and miss, this one. Born to Be Wild. Terrible choice for a cover. Like the most cliche song you could think of probably is Born to Be Wild. I don't know if there are some others, like some classics from the 70s, maybe 60s. Just a terrible, terrible choice. Probably every bar band, every cover band, maybe even every major band at some point probably has done some form of Born to Be Wild. But I will say the Cult did it well. They did it, it does sound like the original. They didn't change it too much, but they did change enough that it does sound like the Cult, and it sounds like it belongs on Electric. It is very fitting of the album. But what a terrible, terrible song choice, cover choice to do Born to Be Wild. Very cliche. Oh God, this is so hard to read, and I have great eyes. It's just bad lighting here. Here's the CD I can read. Outlaw. Another fast-paced one. That's a good one. Memphis Hip Shake, 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 Shake is the last song. And so there it is. I as much as I love this album, I don't have the attachment to the Cult as I do with some of these other bands that I talk about. But I could listen to this album on any given day. I still listen to this album pretty regularly, as I do with most of these albums. And I at some point did get tired of it, but like with many things, when you take a break, which I did maybe for some years after it came out, you tend to appreciate things more. I love many songs, maybe even albums that I didn't really love just because I got tired of them. I don't ever want to hear Enter Sandman again, probably. I'm over that song and I'm not back to it yet, and Rock and Roll All Night. So there it is, the Cult, Electric. I don't love the Cult, but I do love this album.